All right, Clayton Safey here with EJ Holland from the Wolverine.com. We are here at West Bloomfield High School checking in on some of the top targets here for Michigan in both 2021, 2022. But we'll start talking about Donovan Edwards, four-star running back here from West Bloomfield. Michigan high school football canceled for the fall, but possibly could play in the spring, could enroll early. EJ, what's the latest with Donovan Edwards' recruitment?
Yeah, so Donovan's obviously one of the top remaining targets in this cycle. He's a guy that is a must land. We often throw around the word must lands in recruiting a lot, but when you look at it from a talent standpoint, from a perception standpoint, from the program he's at, West Bloomfield, that has Ron Bellamy, who played at Michigan, who Michigan came down here and landed a couple of guys last cycle in Makari Page and Cornell Wheeler. It's a huge recruitment. It's a pivotal recruitment, especially with the negative in-state, vibe and perception that there is out there right now. So from an overall standpoint, he's a guy that Michigan needs on board. Like I said, he's a very talented back. He's a top 100 prospect nationally. The perception needs to be changed that Michigan can land the big fish in state. And you could make an argument that Donovan is the top guy in state. Obviously, Damon Payne, Rayshon Benny, Rocco Spindler are all great prospects, but Donovan is definitely an elite player. So just from an overall standpoint, he may be Michigan's biggest remaining target other than Rayshon Benny, who's right down the road as well.
Let's talk about that perception because last week Michigan missed out on Rocco Spindler, who, from Clarkston, chose Notre Dame, offensive guard. But, let's say they end up landing Edwards at the end of this cycle. You had Andrew Anthony, a big, head-to-head win a couple weeks ago against Michigan State, and able to get him and show that you can get some of these top guys. But let's say they finish with Donovan Edwards, maybe get Rayshon Benny. Is that narrative over, at least for the 2021 cycle, until the same people start, bringing it back up next year?
Yeah, you're always going to have that narrative. I feel like if you're any big in-state
Right.
school, I covered Texas. They had the same issue with certain schools as well. So there's always going to be people that are unhappy, and you can't please everybody. At the same time, I feel like both of these recruitments with Donovan Edwards and Rayshon Benny are pivotal for changing that narrative, or at least quieting the narrative. And they're both big, positions. Donovan is a star running back. Rayshon Benny's a defensive tackle. Obviously, Michigan needs to land a true defensive tackle this cycle, and Rayshon Benny is that guy. So it's not just about perception with these two. It's positions of need, prime positions. With Rocco Spindler, it would have been really nice to have him. At the same time, he's an offensive guard. What would you rather have, a running back or a guard? An offensive tackle or a guard? A receiver, a guard? You could go on and on and on.
Right.
These guys are prime positions. You need a big-time running back. You definitely need a big-time defensive tackle in the Big Ten. So both pivotal recruitments and both name guys. I think everybody around the Detroit metro in the state of Michigan knows Donovan Edwards, knows Rayshon Benny. So, I think it would quiet people down at least a little bit for the remainder of the cycle if Michigan's able to close. And Michigan already has a top 10 class, so this would propel them into the top 5 if they're able to close with Benny and Edwards.
Right. And you talk about certainly you'd rather have probably a running back or a tackle, but Edwards is a running back. What exactly I know you've thrown out some comparisons in terms of what he is looking at NFL guys and what he compares to, what he could translate as in college. What would, Donovan Edwards bring to Michigan or whoever he ends up choosing at the end of this thing?
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely have had a hard time coming up with an NFL comp for Donovan, and it's hard to even think of someone that I've covered in the past. Someone that I've thrown out there is Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers, who's consistently a top 12 fantasy football running back. He's a guy that both of them, they're a little bit bigger backs, but they can also make plays as receivers. And when I saw Donovan live last year, especially against Belleville in the playoffs, he was actually more impressive when splitting out wide than he was in the backfield, just because he is so big, he's athletic, he's fast. He kind of brings the total package as just an athlete. And then once he really kind of develops more as a pure running back, I think that he's going to be a special player at the next level. Right now, he's more of a downhill guy. He doesn't use his quickness as well as he should, but he does have quickness. He does have speed. I saw him in the opener against Oak Park last year, and he broke off a 60-yard touchdown run. Once he gets past that first level, he can take off. So I think with Donovan, it's more about learning the intricacies of the position from an athletic standpoint, from a size, speed standpoint. He has it all, and that's why he's ranked so high. And I say Aaron Jones just because Aaron Jones is elite when it comes to yards per carry. When you look at Aaron Jones, he averages, I think it's like a ridiculous number, like 5.3 yards per carry. And Donovan just consistently moves the chains with his power, and he'll break off a long run. And like I said, he'll make plays as a receiver as well. So overall, I think once Donovan really develops, and I think he's getting really good coaching here from Ron Bellamy, I think the sky's the limit with him.
When you look at the class overall, there are over 20 guys now. Things are starting to fill up. It's obviously a unique year, so it's earlier than normal. I mean, we're here in August, and they have a few spots left. You look at some other top targets like Camonte Grimes, Drew Kendall, and some other guys. But Donovan Edwards and Rayshon Benny, especially in state, how we mentioned him a couple times, are some of those guys that would kind of seal the deal at the end for this class. What exactly, I like the receivers they have. Offensive lineman is a strong class. What is he kind of the cherry on top of the rest of this class? I know they don't have a running back, but it just seems like with such a solid class already intact, what exactly does he do for that entire group, and what kind of class would he make this for Michigan?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. I don't view him as a cherry on top guy. I don't think you can downplay his recruitment. I mean, he is an extremely talented ball carrier. He would make all the difference in this class from a perception standpoint, from a talent standpoint. Like I said, he would elevate Michigan from that 7-8 range into the top 5, into the 4 or 5 range. So I do think he would be a huge land from both perspectives, as we talked about. But Michigan has a battle ahead. He's not afraid to leave home. He really almost committed to Ohio State earlier this cycle. Things were definitely trending that way before some things happened there, but Georgia's still very involved. Oklahoma is still very involved. Ole Miss to a lesser extent. So Notre Dame also to a lesser extent. So I think winning a huge battle for an in-state kid with that type of talent is more of a necessity than a luxury.
Okay. Well, that's Donovan Edwards. We're going to get to talk to him. We're going to get to talk to some of the other kids. We'll talk about some other topics as well. But remember, promo code BLUE60 over at thewolverine.com gets you 60 free days of all of our premium content, all EJ's inside scoops. So BLUE60 over at thewolverine.com.